Hello everyone, back with the tenses, the second part. In the first part, we studied about present tense and the various forms of it. Now, in this part, we are going to speak about the remaining types of tenses and their forms. So, in continuation, we come to the past tense, that is now the simple past tense. Uses. It's used for a past action when the time of an action is mentioned. Simply, whenever we speak about an action that took place in the past and we mention the time, then we use simple past tense. That is the second form of the verb. I received your letter yesterday. Received in the simple past. To indicate a habitual action in the past. Now, simple past tense is also used when we talk about a habitual action in the past, something that we used to do regularly. So, the example will make the idea clear. I attended the church regularly during my young days. Attended is in the simple past, speaking about an action which I used to perform regularly. So, indicates a habitual action in the past. Used in conditional sentences to indicate an unlikely condition. Okay, example, I wish I knew typing. Now, a sentence starting with I wish speaks of a particular condition. So, those are conditional sentences. So, in conditional sentences, we use simple past tense. I wish I knew typing. Knew is simple past. The next form is past continuous tense. The uses of past continuous tense are to indicate an action was in progress for some time in the past. So, when we talk about past continuous, so that particular word suggests that because it is past, it has to have was or were, uh, keeping in mind the subject and the continuous form of the verb, that is the present participle, ing form that we normally say. So the boys were jesting in the class. Were jesting, past continuous tense. We talk about an action that was in progress for some time in the past. This particular action was in progress in the past for some time. So the boys were jesting in the class. Next use, it can be used in combination with simple past. Sometimes we use past continuous also with simple past in combination. Example, while we were having lunch, some guests arrived. So that speaks about a particular action which was happening in the past when another thing also took place. So that is in combination with simple past. So while we were having lunch, were having denotes past continuous, some guests arrived. That is simple past. So that makes it clear in what type of situations do we use past continuous in combination with simple past, as in this sentence. Okay, moving on to the next one. That's past perfect tense. Okay, uses. To indicate that an action was completed at some point in the past time before another action commenced or took place. So, as the use speaks, that when there are two actions that take place, okay, sometime in the past, one action that takes place before another action commenced or took place, we use past perfect with the first action. Let me make it clear to you through this sentence, this example here. The thieves had run away before the police arrived. So there are two actions that took place in the past, right? The police arrived, the thieves had run away. So the action that took place before the commencement of the other action. With the first one or with the first action, we use past perfect, right? Like in this sentence, the thieves had run away. So this is the first action that took place. The police arrived after that, all right? So with that first action, we use past perfect. Because it is the perfect tense, so past perfect, we have to use had with it, and run is the third form of the verb to be used, that is past participle. Okay, past perfect can also be understood as past of the past, right? So that makes it clear, past of the past, whatever happened in the past, this action took place before that. So before the police arrived, the thieves had run away. This action took place before that. So past perfect tense used here. Another example, after he had left, the roof collapsed. So two actions again in the past. One, he left, other, roof collapsed. So we use past perfect with the first action because it took place before the other one took place. So after he had left, past perfect, so had to be used, and the third form of the verb, that is past participle, after he had left, the roof collapsed. Okay, so this is what past perfect tense is all about, all right, in simple terms. The next one, past perfect continuous tense. Now the uses to describe an action which began in the past and continued up to certain point of time in the past. So we are talking about the past. So an action that took place sometime in the past, it began and continued to a certain point of time. So past perfect continuous tense. Example, when I visited him in Chandigarh, he had been teaching there for 5 years. So this speaks about an action which began in the past and continued to a certain point of time. He had been teaching. This is past perfect continuous tense. Past perfect, so had to be used, and continuous tense, that is why been teaching. Okay, so that makes it clear here. Another example, they had been playing in the park for 3 hours before I called them. So again, past perfect continuous tense, they had been playing is that past perfect continuous tense. Those words denote that tense here, in the park for 3 hours before I called them. So again, coming to the use, an action which began in the past and continued up to a certain point of time in the past. Alright, so they had been playing for 3 hours before I called them. So that is how past perfect continuous tense is used. Okay. The next one here is simple future tense. Now coming to the future tense, the first form is simple future tense. To describe an action which is yet to happen. So all of you know, when we talk about the future tense, we are talking about an action which is yet to happen. All right. So I shall go to Agra tomorrow. Shall or will and the verb. So that is how we frame sentences in simple future. That is what the example speaks about here. So I shall go to Agra tomorrow, an action which is yet to happen. Okay. He will come here on my birthday. Will come here on my birthday will come denotes simple future tense, an action again which will happen in the future. Okay, the next form, future continuous tense. The uses to describe an action that will be continuing at a given point of time in future. So we are talking in terms of future. So here when we speak of future continuous tense, we are already thinking about an action, we are talking about an action which would be probably continuing at a given point of time in the future. So while framing such sentences, we use future continuous tense. Example will clarify the use to you. I shall be taking my tests tomorrow at this time. So we are talking about a particular action which will be continuing at that particular time in the future. I shall be taking. So future continuous tense has shall or will plus be and the present participle. So that is how we frame these future continuous tense sentences. Another example is an interrogative sentence which speaks of future continuous tense. What will you be doing this evening? So we frame interrogative sentences as well in the future continuous tense when we want to know about about a particular action or something that is thought of in the future, that we are thinking of in the future. For example, this question here, what will you be doing this evening? So this is a sentence which speaks about an action that we are expecting. So that's how the question has been framed. The next form, future perfect tense. To describe an action that will be completed at a given point of time in future. Future perfect tense speaks of an action that will be completed at a given point of time in future. Okay, example here, we shall have shifted to our new house by the end of this month. Okay, so that is how it goes. We are expecting an action to take place at a given point of time in future. Okay, so that is when we use future perfect tense. So because this is future, so we use either shall or will. Perfect, that is why we have to use have with it, okay, and the past participle form of the verb. So shall have or will have plus the third form, the past participle form of the verb. So that is how we frame these future perfect tense sentences. I shall have shifted, we shall have shifted to our new house by the end of this month. This speaks of an action that will be completed at a given point of time in future. Another example, he will have left that place before you reach his home. So again, an action that would have got over, okay. So at a given point of time in future, so he will have left that place before you reach his home. Again, a sentence in future perfect tense. Future perfect continuous tense, that's the last form of this particular type of tense. Now, to describe an action that will be in progress even after a point of time in future. So this speaks about a hypothetical situation, like there's an action that will be in progress even after a point of time that we expect that thing to happen, to be in progress. So by the end of this year, I shall have been living in Kolkata for 4 years. The time has been mentioned and future perfect continuous. So we have shall have been living. Okay, so shall have or will have plus form of verb be, here to be used been, and the present participle, because we are talking about future perfect continuous tense. So this is how we frame a sentence in future perfect continuous tense. By the end of this year, I shall have been living in Kolkata for 4 years. Another example, she will have been traveling for 8 months by the end of this year. Okay, so this too denotes future perfect continuous tense, will have been traveling, right? So that is how sentences speaking of future perfect continuous are framed. But then there is something that I would like to tell you, that this tense is no longer in use nowadays, though this is one of the forms of the tenses that we have read, and we read it right now. But then grammar is something where things keep on changing and evolving. Actually, there are some things that were probably not accepted in the past now, because of the changing ways of speaking, or some rules sometimes are changed in some ways. So this is that part, or an example we can say, where this particular thing tells us that this particular form of tense is not used nowadays. So you won't find many people or many sentences being framed in future perfect continuous tense. So that's about it. Till now, this ends the session on tenses. It was quite a basic one, so that there are many ways in which sentences are framed. Tenses have some more uses. These are the most basic of those that I have dealt with here, and I hope you go through the video properly, and you take a note of all these things and use them in your daily conversation, and be particular, because tenses are a very important part of our conversation. We cannot afford to make mistakes there. Alright, that's about it. Now it is the time for the assignment. There are these sentences that you can see. You have to identify the tenses of these sentences. There are specifically 12 sentences here, and you have to find out what the tenses are in all these sentences. So just jot them down, find out the tenses, identify the tenses, and you can send the assignments to us on our WhatsApp numbers. So that's about it today. Have a good day. Thank you.